everyone. Welcome to this Fireside chat brought to you by Birlasoft in collaboration with the ServiceNow team. I'm Neha and I'm your host for today. I lead the manufacturing strategy for Birlasoft, keeping a close watch on our customers and markets to design and define some of the key domain solutions in the manufacturing space. Joining with me today, we have John Dorothy, who leads the manufacturing go-to-market for ServiceNow in the US. John is a seasoned expert with more than 2 decades of experience in the industrial manufacturing space. He talks passionately about leading-edge manufacturing and supply chain solutions and is dedicated to guiding companies through continuous improvement and business transformation in areas of driving efficiency, reducing cost, and improving quality. We also have Pradeep, who is our Global Practice Director and the Head of Supply Chain at Birlasoft. Pradeep has extensive experience across various industries, and he also leads the consulting team for us and consults large manufacturing clients on areas like sales forecasting, production planning, scheduling, and inventory management. And we also have Vikas, who is SVP and head of our cloud and infrastructure business at Birlasoft. Vikas is an accomplished leader with over 25 years of experience who has led numerous IT outsourcing deals. He's spearheaded various service offerings at Birlasoft and is taking them to our global customers. Welcome, gentlemen, and thank you for joining us. To set some context before we go into the questions, supply chains can be disrupted today with events as small as a part shortage or as large as the global pandemic. While this equation is linear, we're living in a fairly non-linear world, which is more complex, which has more economic uncertainty, which has geopolitical instability, and also climate sustainability. Now, this chaotic world today is characterized by what we call as a BANI world, a world where there is brittleness, anxiety, nonlinearity, and incomprehensibility. And it is in this world where going beyond intelligence and AI into the realm of thinking, feeling, and sensing becomes equally important, giving way to what we call as the sentient manufacturing. Today, we will be traversing various aspects of the sentient manufacturing approach at Birlasoft, where we will talk about combating supply chain disruptions with a sensing mindset, persona thinking approach, AI-driven reflex strategy, and more. To start with, I will invite John to share his views on the supply chain disruptions. Considering the turbulent nature of our environment, John, we'd like to go a little deeper into the key reasons for supply chain disruptions today. What strategies are customers adopting, if you want to talk about it? Where are they succeeding? Where are they failing? And what is really required to build these resilient and sustainable supply chains for our customers?
Yeah, great questions, Nia. Thank you very much, and very happy to join everybody. After this morning or this afternoon. So, yeah, and Nia, I would really say there's really a couple key areas that I've noticed with our customers across the board are top of mind. Building up these, resilient, sustainable supply chains. One of the first areas that is really top of mind is diversification of the supply chain. I think one thing that the pandemic sort of taught us very quickly was that, there's definitely breaks within the supply chains. They're not as resilient as we thought they were. And that's leading to the next piece, which is we're starting to see a huge shift towards like nearshoring. So we have a lot of customers that had a lot of suppliers overseas. They're starting to bring that back, whether it be to the United States or more regionally to the European type markets. So that's a big area. And I know Pradeep is going to probably talk about this, but another huge area of focus is just around technology advancements. Like, a lot of our customers are asking us, the buzzword is Gen AI, but, what does that mean to their business across the board? How do they apply these type principles? And there's other sort of technologies, behind the scenes, like blockchain is still out there. Data analytics is huge from that perspective. And, the third area that is really near and dear is just around, the employee experience. And, we'll talk about this a little bit later and how Birlasoft can help from, just the change management, what SIs mean. But I meet with a lot of customers and employee experience is top of mind.
Very well said, John. These wonderful insights. And you mentioned about technology, so that's another very interesting area. So Pradeep, moving on to you, when we take a closer look at the realm of technology investments, how do you think this brittleness is changing the priorities and investment considerations for CIOs and the business teams from the supply chain perspective?
Absolutely, and again, thanks for inviting me. John hit the nail. Technology is one of the topmost priority of most of the CXOs, not just CIOs, but CFOs and CAOs, to ensure that they have the organization in a growth path. And I like to sum up this whole technology into 3 sections. One is digitizing the supply chain, modernizing the supply chain, and simplifying the supply chain. And whether you take AI, ML, or decision support system or automation, any of this, I like to group them into these 3 categories. I like to elaborate a little bit more. When people ask me what is digitalization, and I say it is an ability for an organization to take decision anywhere, get information anywhere, anytime. So that's an ability if you can provide. That's where the organization aspires to be a digital organization. Second part is modernization. Still a lot of the supply chain technology is being performed in a very older legacy applications, mainframes. EDI, we have been having EDI since last 30-40 years. So it's time for organization to move into the next generation, and we have seen a lot of investments happening around that, especially connected inventory. And this is something even Birlasoft is doing a lot, making sure the ability for organization to have end-to-end connectivity, visibility using modern technology. So that's a modernization part. The third part is simplification. And as you know, we have seen through this pandemic and all other such disruptions, anytime you have a complex supply chain, it has an inherent risk for disruption. So the mantra that a lot of CXOs and chief supply chain officers are doing is cutting down on all those non-value-added activities. Nearshore is one of the things. It's all simplifies the supply chain, makes it more future-proof and disruption-proof.
Very well said, Pradeep. You talked about disruption, you talked about inventory visibility, and you talked about moving investments more into the modern-looking technologies. Very well said. So moving on to John. John, based on a recent Gartner report, we read that only 13% manufacturers actually have supply chain visibility into areas of inventory, and especially the upstream inventory, looking at the suppliers, the in transit, within the warehouse, etc. And also 70% of these manufacturers that we're talking about are actually working with legacy systems, right?
Yeah.
So on this spectrum of optimizing efficiency to enhancing the overall agility, where do you think the companies are putting their focus, and how are they dealing with this IT/OT integration, if you will?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll tell you, the number one area I think folks are really struggling with is just around, how do they wrap their arms around collaborating with their various entities within the supply chain? And, that sort of leads to a couple other discussion points that I know we're going to get to here in this discussion. It's just around, do they have enough data to make great decisions? And there's just a wealth of exceptions that they have to deal with on a daily basis. And, one of the things that a lot of customers are struggling with, they hear the buzzword Gen AI. And one of the things that Gen AI is doing really well is, how do they cut down on the amount of, how do they do summarization of what those exceptions are they're dealing with on a daily basis? And then Gen AI is doing a really good job of prioritizing those exceptions. So, when you walk in, exactly what do I have to deal with, on a daily basis. So, I really think that, collaboration, how do I apply the technology? You're starting to see some common themes emerge here across the board. And I think the last piece, which is really key from a Birlasoft perspective, is helping with the change management. How do you sort of help customers on a daily basis navigate some of these tricky waters, just from a change management perspective?
Absolutely, well said. And while we're at Gen AI and we talk about change management, it is also important to understand some of the foundation technologies that sort of lay the platform to build all of this, right? So I'm going to move over to Vikas. And Vikas, my question for you is more around cloud computing. And with the focus of transformation in supply chains all across, obviously stemming from the pandemic, where we saw a lot of disruption. What do you think is the importance of manufacturing edge cloud, right? And how is it providing benefits to support the whole sector? What kind of outcomes is it creating for clients?
That's a great question, Neha. So if you look into that, we are seeing a lot of our manufacturing industry customers have already started embracing the edge cloud technologies. The first prominent use case is to build in the resilience and adaptability within their supply chain to ensure that their operations are always being efficient and superior customer experience could be provided to their customers. And this is more relevant, especially if you look through in the digitized and the globalized market that we all are in. This is most common use cases that what we have been seeing. We at Birlasoft itself has developed a lot of use cases onto the edge cloud that we are providing to our customers. But let me explain a few simplistic ones where we have been seeing a lot of adaptability at mid-level manufacturing companies to the tier 1 manufacturing companies. The simplest one could be the real-time inventory management part of it. So what's happening is the customers have started reading the IoT data, whatsoever is there in their inventory levels, to measure it up in the near real time and try to optimize their production scheduling and prevent the stock outs out there. Ultimately, the end goal is to how they can deliver faster, put a last minute or just in time kind of inventory and improve their customer satisfactions. Another prominent use case you will see in most of the industry is the predictive maintenance part of it, especially into the heavy industrial areas, right? Like I can talk about the aeronautical aircraft engines. Most of the companies like Rolls-Royce, GE, who have been making them up, they are using the sensors to collect the data, try to do the analytics at the edge itself, and try to detect the problems earlier. And you will see the same use case which is getting deployed into the autonomous cars manufacturing also. This enables them to do the predictive maintenance onto those heavy machinery which have been very costly and prevent the costly downtime that they could face because of those things. Another common use case that we have been seeing more into the FMCG sector or into the B2C kind of a sectors is more towards the perishable goods, monitoring temperature, auto routing of the maybe your trucks, maybe your logistics, and the productive quality improvement by doing everything at the edge, getting the data, analyzing it up, and optimizing the things there and then. The one thing which edge cloud has really brought to the world is the decentralized decision making. So now what is happening is at the plants level itself, there's a lot of local data which has been in the real time getting ingested, and a lot of insights and getting provided to the people within the plants itself to take a quick and more responsive decisions. And it ensures that there would be a minimal disruptions into the plants by taking those timely decisions out there. One of the area where we have been seeing now a new adaptability which has been started off is how you can make sure that whatsoever technology, especially onto the IoT side or within the plants that we have been bringing in, you can make sure that they have been secure and visible. So edge clouds helping you to monitor those technologies, monitor your production lines, and allow for the real-time anomaly detection out there. Identify those threats, identify those breaches, which is against the common compliance regulatory that you put across for the safeguarding of your plants or your infrastructure, and provide those sensitive data to the operator there and then, so that they can take more cautious and intelligent timelines. But this is not the end of where we have been seeing that the edge cloud is getting adapted. I would say the tier 1 companies or the big companies have been shifting towards the autonomous and collaborative supply chains. Let me explain what I meant by that one. Few of the new next generation technologies, they have been looking for self-optimizing networks, where edge devices would able to communicate to each other and collaborate and take certain decisions in optimizing the logistic and the production lines. We have been seeing there's enhanced collaborations which have been happening between the stakeholders like your manufacturer, your suppliers, your logistics. They have been coming with the edge platforms, and edge has been providing that kind of a bridge for them to exchange the information and data straight away, rather than going to the main cloud, doing some computation there, and then coming back onto the edge. And this is all happening because of the multiple technologies which have been coming together. Like edge is actually bridging all those gaps together, like between your physical world and your digital world. You can talk to the AI on the edge, you can talk about the blockchain validations, you can talk about the Internet of the Things, and this is all helping us to optimize the entire supply chain and securing it up. I would say that probably the manufacturers who have been adapting it up they have been unlocking unprecedented levels of efficiencies, agility, and resilience in their entire supply chain. Thank you.
Very well said, Vikas, and thank you for sharing those insights. And now finally, I'm going to address the real elephant in the room, the hottest topic on the block, Gen AI, right? So Pradeep, coming back to you, how do you think Gen AI is playing a role in manufacturing while, like I said, 70% of our assets and applications are still legacy within some of the plants, right? So how does Gen AI play a role, particularly in revolutionizing the supply chain, demand forecasting, logistics optimization? What do you think about that?
Absolutely, Neha. Supply chain had always been a forefront of using some of the advanced processes and technology. How what we have seen in, for example, operations research, optimization. We all know about the Six Sigma quality processes implemented and perfected at GE. So now Gen AI has immense potential to even further innovate supply chain further. And I'll give you some specific use cases. So if you take source, how do I source the material? So if you take the supply chain model, source, plan, make, deliver. Starting from source, the natural language processing and decision support system can help you identify what are the right supplier for your product. It will quickly shortlist, the supplier needed for your material. It can do the role play of negotiation. Even it can assess the risk of that supplier's financial and stability. So all of this leads to you a much more efficient sourcing platform using Gen AI on top of traditional sourcing process. Let's move to the plan area, and you brought up on a topic about forecasting. So ability of a forecasting using market trends and disruptions. A very important and a recent use case was one of the bicycle manufacturer. They had one of their cycle show up trending in Twitter. It's X now. The moment that started trending on Twitter, they saw a huge surge of the demand increasing for that bike. So think of a manufacturer who has an ability to assess this event happening and quickly gearing up, converting that information and event into a supply chain process where the sales forecast is quickly increased and the supply plan is met and matched up to meet the demand. So the amount of potential an organization has to use this event and not to lose that opportunity and not lose sales is tremendous. When it comes to manufacturing and planning, the whole digital twin helps organization to assess the quality of a product without actually doing a destruction testing. So given all these parameters, you will be able to create a golden batch. So the quality of the product is need not be tested further. Finally, on the deliver, there's already a lot of innovation already going in. Right from coming up with prediction of where the disruption can happen to predicting when your shipment arrives at your door. We all call it as Amazon effect. We order something in Amazon and we expect, you can see when it's coming. So it's almost give you a very close prediction of when it's arriving. And all of this is driven through a Gen AI based model, which looks at the traffic, which looks at the time that vehicle is moving and gives you that kind of a prediction of when that happens. All of this, I see a very, very interesting, potential for Gen AI playing a role in supply chain, Neha.
Absolutely makes a lot of sense, Pradeep. Thank you for sharing that. And while Gen AI and various technologies are becoming paramount for organizations to sort of experiment and experience within the overall implementations, it is also important for SIs to differentiate themselves from each other, right? So I'm going to come over to John and try to understand how these SIs like Birlasoft and others are looking at these key considerations and differentiating themselves on the path to helping clients with supply chain.
Yeah. I'm going to try to string this all together, this conversation. Vikas mentioned something that was hopefully doesn't get lost here in the translation. But where I really see SIs, and to Vikas's point directly, there are companies out there looking for various ways to drive different revenue type models. And in order to do that, you really have to navigate these complex, environments, and supply chain is just one part of that environment. I think the spot where Birlasoft really comes into play is helping companies, navigate those complexities very easily, on a daily basis. And then the other piece of it is, Pradeep mentioned, is, the technologies are also becoming, much more robust, but then, with the robustity of those technologies also, is that complexity. And, from an SI perspective, how do you take those complexities and really start to boil that down and make it very easy for companies to consume it from that perspective. So, and then I think the last area, which is also very key, is just, how do you help companies, from an SI perspective, see return on investment and do that very quickly and easily. That's top of mind. Everybody I've met with, in the particular, particularly in the last year, maybe 2 years, at the C level, it's great that they're going out and applying these new technologies and different ways of looking at their business. But, they're being measured directly on that return on investment, for the amount of dollars that they're going out there and procuring different technologies and different software. There's a dollar value that's associated with that. And, if that return on investment is not there, then there's some serious questions like, what did we select, and what was the decision-making process? So, there's a lot of I's and I's that need dotted and T's that need crossed, and I think that's where an SI comes into bear, is really helping drive those different revenue models, like we mentioned, navigating the different technology pieces, and then helping drive that value piece on the backside and making the project most successful.
No, absolutely, very well put together and string together, John. Thank you for that. And that actually brings us to the end of this discussion. We talked about edge computing, we talked about supply chain resiliency, we talked about demand forecasting and how GenAI is playing a role. And thank you for your time, wonderful insights, and thoughtful contributions to all the speakers. As we part ways, let's keep our sights on this transcendence to sentient manufacturing, where we're amalgamating technology and the human elements, setting way for Industry 5.0. Thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Dan. Thank you.